he said something that I'll never forget. He said, Rhino, sometimes being a realistic self-evaluator does not serve you. If everybody was honest with themselves, nobody should be playing in the major leagues. This is a league of the best players in the world, and sometimes you have to be just dumb enough to think you're better than you are. And I think that goes for everything in life. It goes back to when I was 5 years old. And as a 5-year-old, I decided I'm going to play in the big leagues one day. Well, that dream was so big and so wild and so outrageous. I had no idea what the steps were going to be along the way or how hard it was going to be. I just knew that I would do everything it took to make it happen. So as we talk about transitioning, other people setting goals, other people becoming their best and achieving their dreams, have a goal so big that you don't know what the steps are along the way. You shouldn't know how to get there, or else maybe your dream's not big enough. Maybe your sales goals aren't big enough. Sometimes you have to be just dumb enough to think you're better than you are.
Welcome to the Rockstars Rocking podcast, powered by Voluntary Disruption, a show dedicated to people who are crushing their business and life goals. These are bite-sized conversations with leading rock stars in their respective industry who are pumped to share their story to help drive you to the next level. So, are you ready to rock? Speaking of rock stars, here's your host, Eric Silverman.
Hey, rock stars, welcome back to the Rockstars Rocking podcast, where I say it each and every week. You know it. I only have the finest, the most exciting rock stars rocking it out in their personal life, their business life, their career, their family, you name it. And guess what? This week is no different. Everybody help me welcome my new good friend, Ryan Lavarnway. And if you don't know Ryan, let me just read a little bit of his bio. I'm just going to give you some highlights, some bullet points. And anybody that knows me knows I geek out on insurance, boring, but I also moreover geek out on baseball. So guess what? Ryan is a 10-year Major League Baseball veteran, MLB catcher. He's a World Series champion with the Boston Red Sox in 2013. He's played for, I believe, 8 teams in his career, not including the fact that he's the captain of Team Israel in the World Baseball Classic last year, and he's also an Olympian from 2020. Now, if that's not enough, but wait, there's more. He's also currently the on-air analyst covering the Colorado Rockies for AT&T Sportsnet. He is a new, last year, children's book author. I'm holding it up. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it. The children's book, Baseball and Belonging. So we're going to dig into that. He's a keynote speaker talking about leadership and mindset. So he's available for anybody that wants to inquire. We'll talk about that as well. And he's also the podcast host of the Finding the Way podcast with Ryan Lavarnway. Ryan, I'm excited to turn the script on you and let you be the guest and let me do the interview. Welcome to the show.
Eric, what an intro, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for highlighting some of the things that I'm doing. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Oh, man, I'm super pumped. I told you, and I just said it again, I geek out on everything baseball. I am an all Orioles fan 24/7. That's all I care about. And if and when over the years we weren't doing so well, I know you were with the club for a little while. I just follow baseball. There's always baseball happening in my house. So I'm excited to tie baseball and your career into a little bit of benefit. So we're going to get into that as well. So first question I have for you is basically, if we look at it, and I look at it this way, reflecting on your journey from MLB to the Olympics and authoring a children's book, again, for everybody watching, Baseball and Belonging, how has a moment of resilience encapsulated your multifaceted career? And what inspired the transition to sharing life lessons through, of all things, children's literature?
Oh, man. So first of all, I want to highlight the fact that before we started recording this show today, you remembered when I was on the Orioles, and that speaks volumes of the fact that you are a true Orioles fan, because after that 2015 season, the Baltimore Sun did a senior superlatives type voting, and I was actually voted the most forgettable Oriole of the 2015 season. Yes.
I did
Yes. So
not
that was a
see that.
very, that was a nice, humbling, remember where you are moments.
Oh my
But as far as a
gosh.
moment, as far as a moment of resiliency, I feel like my career was a series of moments of resiliency. I got called up to accomplish my dream in the major leagues 26 times, which means that I got sent down, traded, or released, essentially fired from my dream job 26 times. Over the course of 12 years, my wife and I moved across the country chasing this dream 56 times. We lived in 33 cities, and I played for 28 professional teams at all levels of the majors, the minors, international. It's just really, if you get knocked down, how many times are you willing to get back up and keep going?
Wow. That's insane, dude. And I didn't look at it from that perspective, of course. I hope I got it right. I said 8 Major League Baseball teams.
Yeah.
But that's an incredible amount of professional teams. So you're including all levels of professional tournaments, Olympics, World Baseball Classic, minor leagues, et cetera, correct?
And international, the
Right.
Melbourne
Sure.
Aces in Australia. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Wow. Well, you've definitely spanned the globe. Why children's literature though? Like, and I read this story, and anybody that's listening, please go to Ryan's website. The link will be in the show notes. Check out his book. It's a children's book, so you can read it in less than 5 minutes, assuming you're not 8 years old. Maybe it'll take you 10. But the reality is, it was brilliant. It was well written, and it's your entire story in a cartoon children's book. Why that though, of all things?
So the book is really important to me. I started speaking about that topic, about finding where you belong, about finding your community and meaning. I started talking about it to adult audiences after the first documentary came out about Team Israel in the World Baseball Classic in 2017. And I was speaking to all these audiences. It was very meaningful to me. And it was actually my rabbi's idea to turn it into a kid's book. He said, children need this story. They need to see an example of someone that followed their passion, did what they love to do, and it led them back to understanding who they are.
I I wanna piggyback on that for a moment, because for those of course many people don't know your story, and I didn't know this either till I did some research. You're and it's in your book. You're from a multi-faith family, and you weren't really into religion. You weren't into either side of religion. You didn't know which way to go. I'm kind of stealing the book here, but you ultimately found Judaism in high school, I believe. Um, and then you've become very religious, and I'm sure you're raising your daughter that way. But I was interested in I realize you didn't have a bar mitzvah, but is it on the path? Have you ever considered it? Will you have it as an adult, which we of course know is a thing? And in my case, my daughter literally just had her bat mitzvah 2 months ago, and she actually had it about a year and a half later than quote unquote normal because of the pandemic and various other things. And I remember she asked me, "Well, Dad, I'm not 13 anymore. It's too late." And she just turned 15 last week. And I said, "Baby, it's not too late. There are folks that get a bar bat mitzvah in their 60s and 70s and 80s, and some people have two or three of them throughout their life." So I'm just curious your thought on that.
So I have considered potentially doing a adult bar mitzvah. It's not on my immediate radar, but it's definitely something that I would be interested in. For
Yeah.
me, I grew up in a house where my mom was born Jewish and loved celebrating Christmas and wasn't comfortable talking about God out loud. And my father was raised Catholic, but was disenchanted by religion in general as an organized principle. So we were, as a unit, we were super tight. You know, it was my mom, my dad, me, and my sister. We celebrated holidays so that we had a reason to celebrate. We would give each other gifts. We would have a nice meal together. We would be a small, happy unit. But outside of our household, we didn't have a larger community. You know,
Mhm.
I had my team on the field and I had my family. At a certain point, I started wanting deeper meaning. Like, why do we have a Christmas tree? Why do we leave out cookies for a big guy in a red suit? Why do we light the candles? Right? I didn't understand, but I wanted to. You get to this age where you start to decide who you want to be as an adult and you get to make decisions for yourself. Well, for me, I started craving meaning,
Mhm.
substance. So I started going to Temple with a friend's mom because she had MS and couldn't drive, and I needed someone to go with. And I really started just pursuing everything. I also explored Zen Buddhism in college, explored meditation. And it wasn't really until I played for Team Israel and I had the community and really the one side of me, which was baseball, my first love, and the other side of me was the Jewish community. When those two things came together was when I really understood it in my own way and embraced it as part of who I want to be.
What you just said for those listening is the long story short of the children's book that he wrote. Again, Baseball and Belonging. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere you can get a book, you can get it. And what I appreciate is how you were able to put that story into words, into a digestible format that a child could understand. And what I really like the most, which I was not expecting because I didn't flip through it in advance, is in the back of the book, everybody. He actually has a few pages that he titles For More Understanding. So referenced in the book are various components and things that are meaningful to him about Israel and his experience and journey. So in general, in the book, he has kind of like a glossary index of sorts to show kids what those things meant. So I thought that was pretty clever. Let me ask you this. As you transitioned from player to analyst, author, and keynote speaker, focused on leadership and mindset and so forth, how has your perspective evolved on the nuances of baseball and storytelling? And can you maybe share any unconventional wisdom or maybe even a personal story that significantly impacted you? Maybe something gleaned from a former teammate over the years.
I have exactly the story that you're looking for, and it was when Terry Francona sent me down from the big leagues. This is the moment that as a
Tito.
player you're afraid of, right? You don't want to get sent down. This is living through your nightmare potentially. And at a certain point, I was called up, sent down, called up, sent down. I knew it was coming at certain points. There were times where I was playing great, but I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. There was no opportunity. There was times where I was playing very poorly and I needed to be replaced and needed to go back down to the minors to work on things. When I was with the Cleveland Indians in 2021, Tito called me into this office. And at this point, I know what this meeting is going to be like. I walk in, I muster my courage. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to plead to stay, right? I'm going to take it like a pro. So as Tito says, we got to make a move. We're going to send you down. I say I get it. I'm going down to the minors. I don't deserve to be here anymore. I need to work on some things. Don't worry about it. Don't feel bad about sending me down. And instead of pandering to me, he said something that I'll never forget. He said, Rhino, sometimes being a realistic self-evaluator does not serve you. If everybody was honest with themselves, nobody should be playing in the major leagues. This is a league of the best players in the world, and sometimes you have to be just dumb enough to think you're better than you are. And I think that goes for everything in life. It goes back to when I was 5 years old, and as a 5-year-old, I decided I'm going to play in the big leagues one day. Well, that dream was so big and so wild and so outrageous. I had no idea what the steps were going to be along the way or how hard it was going to be. I just knew that I would do everything it took to make it happen. So as we talk about transitioning, other people setting goals, other people becoming their best and achieving their dreams, have a goal so big that you don't know what the steps are along the way. You shouldn't know how to get there, or else maybe your dream's not big enough. Maybe your sales goals aren't big enough. Sometimes you have to be just dumb enough to think you're better than you are.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. No wonder he's going to no doubt be a Hall of Famer. Tito, that's fantastic. He's one of my favorite managers that I've ever followed, even though as an Indians guy. So, you just touched on something that in my case now it's off script. I want to ask you a bunch of questions, but what you touched on, do you believe in the saying? I'm going to butcher it, but there's kind of a saying where folks in sales and even sports and life in general, they say things to the effect of if your goals and dreams aren't scaring you, they're not big enough.
Yeah. I believe in that 100%. And it's not about just focusing on the big thing that's far away. For me, it's about embodying the person that does that thing. So when I was in college, I'll take you back. My freshman year in college, I played right field. I hit about 300, which in college is average, maybe below average. And I saw our first baseman get awarded all Ivy League at the end of the season. And I looked at my hitting coach. I said, hey, I want to win all Ivy League by the time I graduate. I thought I was setting a reach goal, something that was far away. And instead of saying, yeah, that's a great goal, you should do that, he said, why not more? Why would you stop at all Ivy League when you could go for all American? Well, nobody at Yale had won nobody at Yale had won all American in my entire lifetime. It had been 20 years at least. So this was something that was unrealistic, that seemed outrageous. But instead of saying, well, no, that means I can't do that, I decided to embody that goal. And when I went to summer baseball, when I was taking batting practice, when I was in the gym, I said, well, how would an All-American do this? How would an All-American take this batting practice? How would an All-American focus on this workout session? And I started to do more than I had ever done so that I could be more than I had ever been. And within the focusing on the big goal, I started to focus on the little steps along the way. What can I control today that will take me towards that big goal? And with the focus on every 4/10 of a second that the pitch is in the air that I was trying to hit, with the focus on every inning, every game, every week, every month, a year later, I was All-American. It's a duality where you focus on the big goal and you focus on the small steps along the way.
Is imposter syndrome real, or is it just a
Oh yeah.
buzzword that I hear all the time?
Imposter syndrome is definitely real.
Speak to me about that.
After I was All-American my sophomore year, I had a large fear of success my junior year that luckily my mom's best friend is a sports psychologist for Olympians. So I
Wow.
had a great resource for myself to reach out to. And I asked her, I said, I just had a historic season at Yale University. I broke 12 records in the record book. How am I supposed to duplicate that? How am I supposed to continue to get better and take another step forward after I just did something that no one's done here before? And I had to learn to lean into my strengths, to reframe stress as an opportunity instead of a threat. I had to learn how to control my emotions so that I could be my best. And what I really learned how to do by the end of the day was it's a form that I call self-interrogation. When you have doubts, you doubt the doubts. Right? So instead of telling myself, I'm going to be the best hitter that has ever been at Yale University, right? Or if you're a salesperson, I'm going to be the best insurance salesman. I'm going to be the best client representative. To me, that's what leads to imposter syndrome. It's that like rah, can do, it's fake. Instead, I like to ask myself, why not questions? Well, why not me? Why not replicate the best season that's ever had? Why can't I be the best salesman? Why can't I be the best client representative? When you ask yourself the negative, you form it, the question in your head that way, your brain goes into Google hyperdrive of answering the question. And then you have all your hurdles listed out in front of you, and you can start to come up with the how and the what and the why of how you're going to overcome those hurdles. And you give yourself some of the positive reinforcement that you would be looking for by asking the question in the first place. But now you have a strategy, and it doesn't lead to imposter syndrome the same way that I'm going to be the best might. Well, why not?
The I truly believe, and I agree with you, that imposter syndrome is real, and it's debilitating for a lot of people, and it is really hurtful in their ability to achieve the quintessential definition of success. But the reason I asked the question was, I'm always on LinkedIn. That's my social media business outlet, if you will, and I see posts from quote unquote influencers, folks that, have hundreds of thousands of followers and more. And I've seen that over the last year where sometimes they're doubting that. They're thinking it's just a buzzword. And I don't believe that. So I was very glad to hear you say what you just said. I want to talk about what I would call cross-cultural team dynamics, for lack of a better term. So, you've played for 8 MLB teams, Team Israel, international competitions. Heck, congrats, of course, that's such an honor. You were named team captain. What unique aspects of Israeli or Jewish culture do you think you brought into the team dynamic, and how was it received by teammates with their various diverse backgrounds? Again, not just Team Israel, but throughout your professional career. And then furthermore, what did you glean from other cultures that helped you become a better man and a better husband and a better player?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily the fact that I brought my Judaism into team cultures that weren't Team Israel,
Okay.
but I think every team benefits from different personalities, different backgrounds, different strengths, right? You can't have a team on the field with 9 pitchers. You can't have a team on the field with 9 catchers or 9 right fielders, right? Baseball is such a literal analogy for this. In any team, in any corporate structure, you need people that think differently, that react differently, and that have different hopes and fears and wants and desires and everything. That's how you cover each other's blind spots. When I'm consulting on leadership, we have a term called leveraging cognitive diversity. If you think differently than your team and you understand, appreciate, and more importantly, leverage that, your team will perform 100% better. When someone says 100% better, you double check the stats. It's been shown. If you leverage cognitive diversity, you will perform 100% better. What that means, somebody needs to be the big picture thinker. Somebody needs to make sure that you cover the downside. Somebody needs to make sure that you have a system and a process in order. Somebody needs to make sure that you have the clients focused on. Somebody needs to make sure that you're thinking about the bottom line. And you need all of those people. You need the detail people. You need the sales people. You need the big idea people. And they need to work together. One of the exercises we do right away is we look at your calendar. We call it the calendar audit. And we understand, what are the things that you love to do that light you up? What are the things that you don't look forward to that drain energy? And what are the things that you need to do no matter what? Especially as a leader, where you have the ability to potentially delegate some of those things, to improve some of those things, to eliminate some of those things, or to focus on different aspects of those things. And what you realize is everybody looks at the world and looks at their daily tasks through their own lens. So if you see the things that don't light you up, the things that drain your energy, you probably have someone on your team that those are the exact things that they love, that they get lit up by. Understanding cognitive diversity, leveraging that means those things that you hate, that someone else loves, switch tasks.
Sure.
Those things that person hates, that you love, you take over that responsibility. So in a team, if you can do that, and it's a baseball team, it's a corporate office environment, teamwork can be teamwork if you look at it through that lens.
Sure. Well, I look at a little bit of what you said, kind of putting it into the sales and marketing and prospecting terms for a lot of our listeners. They're salespeople. They're insurance employee benefit specialists. They sell solutions to advisors and clients and employer groups that need benefits and such. And me, I'm a salesperson, and the most challenging, difficult thing that I hate, like most people in my world, and this is not just insurance, but any sales, is prospecting, picking up the phone and reaching out and trying to gain an audience so you can have a client. What in your career would you relate to in that world? Meaning, I got to imagine it's probably a lot more fun to hit and catch and be on the field than it is to do running drills and to work out in the weight room and such for some people. So would that be a good example of things you have to do to get where you need to go, whether you like doing them or not?
Yeah. So the best coaches in spring training, you play catch for a certain volume of time, right? Whether your arm's loose, whether your arm is hurting or not in spring training, you need to throw for 10 to 12 minutes per day to build up the strength, the endurance, for that later in the year, you don't have injuries. It's the same with running sprints. You need to run your sprints early in the year, whether you're tired or not, whether you need it today or not, so that 4 months from now, you're still healthy. It's the example of a 162 game season. What do you need to do so that 5 months from now, you're in the right place? In the sales environment, how many calls do you need to make to hit your numbers? If you did 10% more or you focused on your script a little bit more, would you hit better numbers, right? What do you need to do today so that at the end of the year, you're successful?
So forgive me for not knowing the answer to this, but I'm curious, did you ever have an elongated stint on the injured list? And if so, talk about mindset and the mental health that you're going to go through when you're on the injured list, particularly in your case, where admittedly you said, I mean, you were sent down a number of times. So how does that weigh on you and your ability to get back to the show?
There was one time, 2014, I was in the major leagues with the Red Sox and I broke my hamate,
Ouch.
hook of my hamate. I had surgery. I was out for 60 days. And it was a year where I was out of options. And it was an important year looking towards my future. And it really did weigh on me, mental health wise and confidence wise, where I had spent most of my career relying on my body and using my body to pursue my career, to pursue and accomplish all of my goals. And now my body had failed me. So it was a big hit. It was something that I really needed to work on. And again, luckily I had mental health resources at my disposal who I could talk to, and I leaned heavily on those.
You don't have to necessarily speak for yourself, but and certainly not naming names, but in your career in professional baseball, is it taboo for a Major League Baseball player to see a mental health therapist, like a psychotherapist, not just for sports, but in general, just to talk through life challenges? And this one means a lot to me because my wife is a entrepreneur and she owns her own and mental health practice, and she juggles 50, 60 patients every week. And it's just normal everyday people that have challenges, kids all the way to adults. So I got to imagine it's a thing, but I'm curious if it was taboo or if that changed over your career.
It definitely changed over the course of my career, and I think it's moving in the right direction. Where I got drafted in 2008, 16 years ago, it was a little bit taboo to talk to the sports psychologist still. At that time, luckily the Red Sox had a former player who had gone back, gotten his degree, and the former major leaguer was the sports psychologist. So it felt like one of us to talk to. Over the course of my career, we had the Simone Biles. What she did in the Olympics, I think, was wonderful for sports moving in the correct direction where you can talk about it. And a lot of the world is talking about it more openly and honestly. Towards the end of my career, I changed teams at least once every single year. So I got the inside perspective of different organizations, and almost every team has an in-house sports psychologist available for the major leaguers and the minor leaguers. Now the question becomes, even if you're willing to talk to a sports psychologist and you're interested, now the doubts become, well, is this guy reporting back to the team? So I think what a lot of teams are going to start doing is the players union is looking into an option where it's not in team control, or teams will start giving guys the option to go outside, but still have a resource to talk to.
And what you just said is also a topic that my wife talks about sometimes with me, where she'll have large employers where they'll send their employees to her because they need counseling. And a lot of times the first session, my wife will say that the employee says, hey, is this all going back to my large employer, my local employer? Like, how's this going to reflect on my employee status and my ability to grow and develop as an employee in this culture? So it happens in real life too. It's a concern.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you saying that. And, I joke with my wife and she says the same, and I'm a little bit older, not too much older. I'm older than you. And dude, when I was in high school, college, nobody talked about mental health. Nobody Nobody, if you were seeing a therapist to talk out challenges in your life or your world, it was embarrassing. You wouldn't preach about it in public. And my 15-year-old daughter, she comes home sometimes, and I'll say, "Hey, why'd you leave your friends so early?" And she'll be like, "Oh, she had to go see her therapist." And it's like, it's out there, it's public, like it's a
Yeah.
thing in high school students now, which I think is great, where kids are able to, I don't know, kind of like, sounds crazy, but I make a joke and say it's like a badge of honor. Like it used to be you're not cool if you see a therapist. Now it's you're not cool if you don't see a therapist. So I was just curious how that impacted in a professional world. So I'm in the employee benefit space, and a lot of my listeners sell and consult and advise in medical insurance and all the various components that are around that. So disability and life, all the way down to dental and vision and anything in between. Can you talk about how employee benefits work in the minors and the majors, and now that you're retired? I'm genuinely curious. I've never known how that works, because I always imagine if you're a Major League Baseball star, I figure everything's taken care of for you, but how's it work for your family?
So I cannot speak to the new system since the minor leaguers have unionized. But
That's fair. Sure.
when I was active, because everything's changed in the last year since I retired.
Sure.
For the course of my career, when you were in the minor leagues, if you were in your first 7-year uniform standard contract, you were under team insurance throughout the year. Anybody that signed a minor league free agent contract after their 7-year deal, or after being released from that 7-year uniform contract, you were insured from the time you signed the contract till the last day of the season the next year. When you're on major league insurance, you're insured year round, from opening day to opening day, and your family is insured with also dental and vision. In the minors, it was you had to pay extra for your family members, no dental, no vision. The one thing that always frustrated me every year, as someone that my family members at least used the insurance, is the year for the insurance starts on opening day. So it's April 1st or 2nd, around there. But the annual deductible worked on the calendar year.
Right.
So I know you asked if it would be okay for me to mention this. My daughter had RSV, right? Very typical, toddler stuff.
Sure.
She went in the hospital in January of this year. Well, my insurance ends on opening day. So I just used up all of my deductible and more in January, and I will be getting new insurance on April 1st. So I'm going to have to hit another deductible 4 months later for the year. And that's one of the little things that frustrates me. But it's just kind of the way the world works for baseball and insurance.
And you mentioned too, I think before we started recording, you mentioned that you just received a bill in there, an EOB, an explanation of benefits, which probably shows what it would have cost had you not had any benefits. Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, $25,000 for basically they had an oxygen tube on her, and she got lunch.
My goodness. Yep. Welcome to the world of my world, right? Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
That's what we fight for or fight against every day, I should say. What about now, right? You're retired. I mean, are your benefits through any type of union or pension part of it? Is it through your current role as an analyst? Like, how's that work?
That's a good question. If you have over 4 years of major league service time, you can elect to stay on major league insurance for the rest of your life, but you have to pay the premiums yourself.
Okay.
I had 10 seasons in the major leagues, but they count days. So as I was up and down and up and down and up and down, there were some years where I got 13 days, 26 days, 150 days. So I have 3.5 years of service time over 10 seasons. So I don't qualify to stay on major league insurance. From the date that I last played, I can stay on Cobra for up to 18 months, which
Sure.
will end on opening day this year. So I've been on Cobra since then, and on April 1st, we'll have to make the decision of whether I get a new job, whether I enter through the open enrollment program somewhere, or if we go on my wife's work insurance.
Do you have the ability to get it through your analyst position?
The analyst position is a freelance position, so no.
Oh, okay. See, I wouldn't have known that. There you go. Okay. Well, if you ever candidly need advice or help, I'm happy to help just to give you some guidance. And I got hundreds and thousands of listeners, no doubt, that would say the same. Let me
Thank
ask you
you.
this. Competing in the Olympics is a pinnacle for everybody, for every athlete, I can imagine. Can you describe a behind the scenes moment from the Tokyo Olympics that really encapsulated the spirit of the games for you personally?
Sure. For me, it was a little bit weird because that was the COVID Olympics.
Right.
So walking in opening ceremonies, you're waving, millions of people are watching, and then you realize I felt my hand lower. I was like, well, I'm waving to, there's no one here. There's no one in
Wow.
the stadium. I'm waving for the cameras. So that was weird. And playing in the stadiums where it was team staff and media members in the stands totaling 150 in a stadium that would have sat 40,000. That was a little bit weird.
There's no energy to feed off of.
Well, we had to create the energy on the
Sure.
team, in the dugout, yelling, supporting each other. For me, the coolest behind the scenes moment at the Olympics was in Olympic Village gym. Anywhere you went in Olympic Village, you had to be wearing your team supplied gear, right? With the colors, the name of the country you're representing. So you look around the gym and put yourself in my shoes, Eric. I'm in the corner with the baseball team doing my little shoulder bands, right? To make sure I don't hurt my arm during the game
Right.
the next day. It's a little purple band. Over to my left, you have the New Zealand power lifters deadlifting 600 pounds.
Oh my
And then right in
gosh.
front of us, right in front of us, there's the Argentinian soccer team doing their warm-up drills. And then the Brazilian gymnastics teams doing handstands and cartwheels. And then the France basketball team on the treadmill, and the Mexico softball team throwing the medicine balls against the wall, and the Kenya distance runners on the treadmill, and just all of the most elite athletes in the world doing the things that make them the most elite athletes in the world, all in one place, and us with our little shoulder bands feeling not quite as good as them.
That's wild. Yeah. So I can totally picture it and imagine how crazy that would be in the best way possible. Were you able to strike a bond with anybody from a different country, where of course you could communicate language wise, that you were able to glean or learn anything from that helped you as you continued in your, because you weren't retired yet, so continued in your professional career?
Yeah, I wasn't retired yet. There wasn't a ton of interaction because it was the COVID Olympics,
Oh, that's
which is, it's not something that I could have controlled. That was the time in the world. But if I could have changed anything, I would have loved to have been able to spend more time with other athletes.
so all over your website. Everybody check that out. It's what is it? RyanLavarnway.com, I think.
That's it.
Yeah, RyanLavarnway.com. Just want to make sure I said it right. On your website, it's a great site, has everything kind of encapsulated in a very easy way to check it out. And all the research I did, you talk about the motto of keep chopping wood, which I interpret basically as just keep moving forward, basically. Where did that come from? Is it something, I mean, I've never heard it put that way myself. So where did that come from, and what does that mean to you in general?
That's something that my father-in-law and his father-in-law have said for years. Ever since I met my wife, we started dating. We've been together for 12 years now, 10 of them married. In good times and bad, keep chopping wood, because when winter comes, you'll need to build a fire. So whether you're winning, whether you're losing, do the things that will make you successful no matter what. And then when I was on the Atlanta Braves and they do the chop from the
Right.
stands, it really hit home back in 2015, which is I went to the Braves after the Orioles.
Mhm.
So I had a few T-shirts made that I wore for years with the tomahawk chop on the front and keep saying wood on the back. And it's just something that we say in our family so that you're always striving to keep moving forward.
Side note, I one of my goals is to visit and watch. Orioles would be great, but to at least watch a real game at every stadium. A lot of people have that goal, and I'm up to 20 something stadiums, but they keep making new ones. When I was in Atlanta for the first time last year, I got to see the Orioles play Atlanta. So talk about some powerhouses that year. And I thought that they banned the tomahawk chop, and yet it was absolutely a thing. And that was just something I experienced. I looked around thinking, I thought this was not allowed anymore. So that was interesting. Um, Let me ask you this. Um, Reflecting on your journey from literally Yale to the MLB and beyond, including your commitment to physical challenges. I know you've on your Instagram, you've shown pictures of you doing ice baths, and you're doing marathons and Ironman and so forth. What advice would you give to aspiring athletes about navigating career challenges?
About navigating career challenges, keep going. I believe that everyone has a strength and a unique power within them where that you can accomplish anything you set your mind to if you're willing to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe outside of the elite sports athletes, right? Anybody can do what they want to do in this life. So set your mind to it, believe that it's possible, and follow. I like to think of it as like a tree, right? If your goal is up here and you're starting down here, you're going to grow and you might branch in different directions along the way. As long as you're still moving forward, take whatever opportunities appear. It might seem a little bit sideways. It might be an opportunity you didn't expect or foresee, but be open on your path.
So, Ryan, looking ahead, right? What's the next big dream or goal you're working towards? And how are you applying the lessons from your career and personal life, speaking of chopping wood, towards your new endeavor?
Number one, I want to be a great dad. I got a little girl at home. You know, she lights up my world. So I've started following all sorts of parenting sites, right? Parenting blogs, talking to people. That's something that I'm really passionate about, is making sure I'm here for my daughter and sharing the things I've learned along the way. Professionally, I want to help people. So whether I'm doing keynote speaking, I'm consulting, whether I'm hosting workshops, I want to help other people achieve their goals, set really good goals, get there in the best way that they can. And if I can, even if it's something that they necessarily have, if it's not something they haven't heard before, but if I can say something in a new way or in a way that resonates with people and it means something to them, that gets me going.
I like that. Now, you do you have any aspirations to continue the analyst position to something even perhaps beyond just the Rockies? Is that, I know you just kind of started that analyst position, I believe, in the last year or two, but I'm sure that's going great. But is the goal to be even bigger, more on a national scene at some point?
We'll see. So the analyst position, a lot of the regional sports networks went through some tumult in the last year. The business of televising baseball has changed. So that role is up in the air. I'm also flirting with a couple teams for coaching roles. So I don't know when you're planning to release this episode, but something may have happened by that time anyway. Bottom line, I love the game. That might be a hint. I love the game. I love being around the game. I feel like I have a lot to offer. Again, I just want to help people and make an impact.
Well, certainly, and this will, but people will be listening to this in March. But we're spring training, really, that time of the month. But that's a great question I hadn't even thought of. So again, I'm not asking you to release anything you're not supposed to, but that is a good question. So I imagine coaching is something that you've enjoyed. I mean, it totally fits speaking and leadership and all that stuff. What type of coach do you aspire to be? Who are your biggest role models, the biggest and best coaches that you've had over the years, and what are some things that that you glean from them that you would like to inspire other players with?
I played for 12 different coaches in the major leagues, and of the 12, my top two favorites were Terry Francona and Buck Showalter.
Hmm.
And
You're
the
just saying
reason that
that
they
for
were my
me? 'Cause
favorites,
I love Buck.
I love Buck.
Okay.
The reason that they're my favorites is because they made every player on the team feel valued. A lot of the times in my career, I was the 25th man on a 25-man roster. or 26-man once they expanded the roster on the 26-man roster. When I was playing 1 every 10 days on the Baltimore Orioles, Buck Showalter still talked to me every single day. He would ask me about the game. Hey, do you think I should bunt here if he gets on? Buck wasn't actually asking for advice. He wanted to make sure that I was locked into the game and that I felt seen. When Terry Francona called me up to the big leagues actually, I think it was the last time I was ever called up. He told me on the first day, right when I walked in the clubhouse, I'm already feeling not totally confident because I've been sent down and up so many times. He said, we had the opportunity to trade for an all-star. We decided to call you up instead. I felt so seen. I felt so valued. I played my best for him every single time. That's what great leaders do. So if I do decide to get into coaching, I want to make sure that everybody feels seen and valued.
I think that's a perfect segue as we wrap up here in that, for the folks listening, a lot of you, of course, are in leadership roles, coaching roles, for lack of a better term, with respect to your sales team, your business development operation and such. And I'm not going to get into it now, but I've talked about it publicly, how I was a leader very young. I don't believe I was a very good leader, and I learned from my mistakes. And the one big thing that I learned over the years was more or less what you just said, in that, even the smallest part of the team, you have to make sure everybody feels seen and valued, no matter what. If you don't, not only are you a poor leader, but in general, why would they even be on your team? Why would they want to be on your team? Why would they want to support you and go to bat for you? So I really love how you said that. I think that's a perfect way to wrap up. So again, for everybody listening, everybody watching here on YouTube, first and foremost, it's easy. It's like $10 or so roughly. Go get this on Amazon, right? Amazon.com, check out RyanLavarnway.com. There's a link there. Barnes and Noble, and basically anywhere you can get books. Great book, particularly if you have kids. You do not have to be Jewish to embrace everything it talks about. I promise you. And check out some of the examples and testimonials on Ryan's website with respect to his coaching and his keynote speaking. Ryan, I'm sure it's no secret, you're not hiding your contact information. Heck, you were kind enough to respond to me. But if somebody wants to get a hold of you and they want to talk through maybe an opportunity for them to bring you to their organization. Me personally, I sit on a number of boards in my industry. We're always looking for powerful keynote speakers. So, continue answering my text, because I might have something for you in the future. But what would be the best way for people to reach out and learn?
Yeah, thanks, Eric, so much. I like to say that I'm easy to find. All my social media platforms I run myself, so you can message me on all LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. I will find it. I will see it. I will respond to you personally. Or if you want to email me through my website, hello@ryanlavarnway.com.
Perfect. I love it. Any parting shots before we let everybody go?
No, I just want to thank you for having me on. This was great. I love having stimulating conversations about mindset and leadership, and how we can take the lessons I've learned on the field and make those universal truths for other people's success.
Absolutely. Well, look, man, you said it all. I just show up. I book some cool guests that I have genuine interest in. I show up, ask some good, bad, not so good questions. Sometimes it is what it is, but I don't do anything after that. I don't know how you run your podcast. By the way, go subscribe to the Finding the Way podcast. It's incredible. I love the Uke episode you just released. But I don't do anything after the interview. I leave it to my team. So for all the hardworking folks on my team behind the scenes that don't get all the credit, and for me, I appreciate you showing up. I appreciate you joining us today. And as I always end every episode, and it's a mindset thing, right? Don't just have a great day. Make it a great day. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Rockstars Rocking podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. 5 stars would totally rock. Until next time, Rockstars, keep rocking.